What if I told you the most haunting films ever made are hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to discover them tonight, for free? Tonight we're stepping into the shadows to uncover these lost noir classics, psychological thrillers so raw they make today's cinema look sanitized by comparison. Each was marked for oblivion by bankruptcy, blacklisting, or moral outrage, only to be resurrected by digital archivists with a mission to preserve cinema's most dangerous visions. Dim the lights, silence your phone, and trust no one for the next hour. These 14 films don't just entertain, they infiltrate your subconscious and remain there long after the credits roll. Scarlet Street, 1945. Fritz Lang's rainy night morality play slashes at the American dream with German expressionist knives. Edward G. Robinson, usually the swaggering hood, shrinks into Christopher Cross, a henpecked cashier who paints to escape drab reality. Enter Joan Bennett's sidewalk siren and Dan Durier's oily pimp, siphoning Cross's talent until humiliation curdles into homicide. What makes this noir particularly venomous is Lang's intimate knowledge of societal collapse. Having fled Nazi Germany just a decade earlier, he understood how easily the veneer of civilization cracks. Watch how he films Robinson's downward spiral, first in his cramped apartment, where shadows from his wife's birdcage bars stripe his face like prison patterns. Then later on, rain-slicked streets where every puddle becomes a mirror reflecting his fractured conscience. Lang filmed on Universal backlots for pennies, but he poured every shot through Venetian blind shadows, echoing his pre-Nazi masterpiece M. New York censors banned it outright for moral indecency, declaring its themes of adultery, theft, and unpunished murder too corrosive for American audiences. When the producer's bankruptcy let the copyright lapse, Scarlet Street drifted into obscurity until digital restoration rescued it from decay. Today, a pristine HD scan plays gratis on the Internet Archive, its final courtroom hallucination sequence, where Robinson's guilt manifests as Bennett's taunting ghost, still raising gooseflesh. No digital horror effect has topped Lang's simple trick of double exposure and echoing voice. That's the magic of noir at its purest, psychological terror from nothing but light, shadow, and human frailty. Detour, 1945, 6 shooting days, $30,000, one fog machine. Edgar G. Ulmer spun those scraps into a cinema nightmare. Down-and-out pianist Al Roberts hitchhikes west, dozes off, and wakes to a dead driver and a black widow drifter named Vera who can smell guilt at 50 paces. Whichever way you turn, fate sticks out a foot to trip you. That line from Roberts' narration might as well be noir's mission statement, and Detour embodies it in every frame. Ulmer, himself a Hollywood exile after an affair with a studio executive's wife, knew something about inescapable consequences. His camera stays claustrophobically close to Tom Neal's increasingly desperate face, creating a pressure cooker atmosphere that contemporary psychological thrillers would kill to replicate. Ulmer reused the same diner set 3 times, draping fresh neon each pass. The claustrophobia sells Roberts' unreliable narration. Are we watching truth or alibi? The film's most haunting moment comes when Vera, played with feral intensity by Anne Savage, dies during a phone call, throttled by a cord in darkness while Roberts frantically pulls from the other room. We see nothing but shadows and hear nothing but silence. Yet it's more chilling than any explicit modern murder scene. When Tiny Producers Releasing Corporation folded, Detour slipped into public domain limbo. Poor quality VHS transfers kept it alive among noir enthusiasts until a fan-funded 2023 cleanup now streams free on Internet Archive, proving you don't need budgets when fate itself is your cinematographer. The Woman in the Window, 1944. A middle-aged criminology professor studies a portrait in a club window, then tumbles through the glass into a waking dream of passion, panic, and body dump logistics. Edward G. Robinson's genteel facade cracks minute by minute while Fritz Lang flexes his favorite theme, chance turning ordinary people into killers. This noir taps into the secret fear lurking in every seemingly respectable life. What darkness might I be capable of under the right circumstances? Lang, ever the master of psychological unraveling, stages a brilliant sequence where Robinson and co-conspirator Joan Bennett dispose of a body in near silence. the camera watching from the car's back seat like a third guilty party. Each shovelful of dirt becomes a miniature death knell, each nervous glance at passing headlights a spike in blood pressure. Producer-writer Nunnally Johnson hated Lang's twist ending. Their rights battle left the negative in legal purgatory for decades. The controversial finale, which contemporary audiences either praised as brilliant or condemned as a cop-out, was actually Lang's commentary on America's need for moral reassurance in storytelling, something his European sensibilities found puzzling in the face of real wartime horrors unfolding overseas. Scholars rescued a vault print in 2015, and its lapsed U.S. copyright lets you stream The Hypnotic Nightmare, complete with that proto-twist finale Hitchcock envied, free of charge on the archive. Watch Robinson's face in the final frames, where relief mingles with something darker, the knowledge that dreams reveal truths waking life denies. The Lady from Shanghai, 1947. Orson Welles torpedoed his own star persona with this Baroque carnival of betrayal. He shaved Rita Hayworth's trademark red mane platinum, wrote labyrinthine dialogue, then staged cinema's most famous shootout inside a hall of mirrors, bullet holes splintering reality itself. Made during the collapse of Welles's marriage to Hayworth, the film vibrates with personal animosity, thinly disguised as thriller mechanics. Every scene between them burns with the particular intimacy of people who once shared everything, and now share only mutual destruction. Watch how Welles frames himself as increasingly small beside Hayworth's luminous presence, the visual language of a man who knows he's lost something irreplaceable. The famous Funhouse climax took weeks to shoot, but seconds to become legendary. As mirror images multiply and shatter, the film itself fractures into pure expressionism, a visual representation of post-war America's shattered innocence. Welles, always ahead of his time, was dissecting identity politics decades before the term existed, showing how public personas become traps their wearers can't escape. Furious Columbia execs slashed the cut by 40 minutes and buried the release beneath musicals. For years, only washed-out bootlegs circulated, until Sony's 2024 4K restoration hit festivals. Astonishingly, an authorized standard def transfer streams open access on YouTube today. Watch Welles and Hayworth circle each other on a fog-drenched deck in a single unbroken dolly shot. Sheer filmmaking swagger survivors of the studio era rarely dared. Night and the City, 1950. Blacklisted director Jules Dassin fled the Hollywood Inquisition, landed in London, and poured his exile anxiety into this fevered portrait of hustler Harry Fabian, forever one scheme away from paradise. This might be noir's most physically exhausting film. Richard Widmark spends nearly the entire runtime running through London's underbelly, his face a mask of desperation that seems to age as the night progresses. Dassin, knowing his own Hollywood career was finished thanks to HUAC accusations, filmed London's bomb-damaged neighborhoods and riverfront slums with documentary precision, creating a landscape where the war never really ended, just transformed into economic struggle. Filming nocturnal London docks, Dassin orchestrated wrestling matches lit like Rembrandt nightmares. Richard Widmark sweats desperation so real you'll want to shower. The film's centerpiece, a wrestling death match between an aging Greek champion and a young challenger, becomes a metaphor for the old world's destruction and the ruthlessness of the new. Dassin films these sequences with a handheld immediacy that feels shockingly modern, predating both the French New Wave and contemporary sports cinematography by decades. Fox released warring UK and US cuts, confusing critics, then let rights languish. The complete British version slipped into the public domain and now glows on the archive in full 101-minute form, where, legend says, Martin Scorsese screens it for every new cinematographer he hires. Watch for the scene where Widmark hides in a drainpipe at dawn, light creeping inexorably toward his hiding place. It's pure visual poetry about the inevitability of reckoning. Criss Cross, 1949. Robert Siodmak reunites with Burt Lancaster for a doom-laden tango of obsession. Steve Thompson returns to LA's Bunker Hill, hoping to reignite a flame with ex-wife Anna, only to volunteer his own armored car route for the robbery that will fund their escape. What makes this noir special is how Siodmak films desire as a physical force. Lancaster's raw physicality creates a character whose body betrays him at every turn. He literally can't stop himself from gravitating toward Yvonne de Carlo's femme fatale. Their dance sequence in a downtown bar, filmed in one continuous take with a prowling camera that captures every finger touch and eye flicker, generates more erotic tension than any explicit modern scene could manage. Siodmak's roving handheld camera prowls smoky bars and ethnic street fairs, rare documentary vividness for 49. The scenes in the actual Bunker Hill neighborhood preserve a lost Los Angeles of immigrant communities, steep cable cars, and Victorian boarding houses. This sociological layer gives the crime story extra resonance. Thompson isn't just risking his life for a woman, but for a vanishing way of life. Universal allowed the negative to deteriorate until archivists unearthed a duplicate print in Prague. Their 2023 scan now streams for free, preserving a vanished neighborhood and a heist sequence that Michael Mann cites as Heat's Godfather. The final hospital confrontation, Lancaster immobilized in bandages as his fate creeps through the door, remains one of noir's most chilling tableaux of predestination. Gun Crazy, 1950. Before Bonnie met Clyde, sharpshooter Annie met ex-juvenile Dell, and the Depression-era outlaw myth reloaded at 90 miles per hour. Joseph H. Lewis mounts his camera in the back seat for a single-take bank robbery that rockets through real streets, terrified pedestrians gawking for authenticity you can't fake. This B-picture shot for pennies contains innovative filmmaking that directors with 10 times the budget couldn't match. Lewis, a master of making poverty look like artistic choice, turns the limitation of not having enough money for process shots into an opportunity. By staging the robbery in one take, with real locations and hidden microphones, he created a documentary-like intensity that feels more like found footage than fiction. Watch how the camera crouches in the back seat, making us unwilling accomplices to the crime, a technique Goddard would borrow for Breathless a decade later. Beyond technical brilliance, Gun Crazy offers a psychological complexity unusual for its era. Peggy Cummins plays Annie with predatory sexuality that the production code couldn't quite censor. Her famous line, "I've been kicked around all my life, and from now on, I'm gonna do the kicking," becomes a gendered manifesto decades ahead of its time. John Dahl's vulnerable Dell, meanwhile, subverts traditional masculine gangster tropes with his emotional dependence and shooting skills that work only when not aimed at living targets. Independent backers folded, copyrights fizzled, and the print drifted into Thursday night TV packages. Truffaut championed it in Cahiers du Cinéma, critics followed, and a 2022 restoration for TCM's Noir Alley returned the film to its full, blistering 86 minutes. Free today on the Internet Archive. Skip the colorized editions. Russell Harlan's grayscale gunmetal palette earns its name. Mystery Street, 1950. Decades before CSI, director John Sturges marched cameras into Harvard's real morgue for this forensic whodunit. Ricardo Montalban, rare Latino lead in studio-era crime, plays a Cape Cod detective partnering with a bone expert professor to ID a beach skeleton. What makes Mystery Street revolutionary isn't just its procedural approach, it's how the film democratizes knowledge as power. Montalban's Lieutenant Morales faces subtle racism throughout the investigation, but counters prejudice not with fists, but with methodical intelligence. The scenes where he absorbs forensic techniques from Bruce Bennett's professor show a rare humility for screen detectives of any era. Together, they create a prototype for the science-respecting investigator that would eventually dominate crime fiction. The location shooting in both Boston and Cape Cod, Winter creates a regional authenticity rarely seen in studio-era crime films. Sturges contrasts the cloistered academic world of Harvard with blue-collar Portuguese fishing communities, using genuine locals as extras and real locations whenever possible. One sequence, where Morales traces a distinctive boot print through snow to a suspect's doorway, plays like a documentary in its straightforward attention to environmental detail. Audiences gasped at anatomical close-ups and rejected the then-novel procedural pacing. MGM shelved wider international release, and a rights lapse bumped the picture into public domain. A volunteer 4K scan uploaded in April 2024 lets you stream history's first mainstream crime lab thriller. still eerily modern in its recognition that science, not intuition, often solves the most mysterious crimes. Body and Soul, 1947. Screens drip with sweat as James Wong Howe straps the camera to a boxing referee, plunging viewers between gloves in punishing POV. John Garfield embodies Charlie Davis, a street kid rising to welterweight glory, while mobsters tug puppet strings. This isn't just a boxing noir, but a searing indictment of capitalism itself. The fighter as exploited worker, his body commodified for entertainment. Writer Abraham Polanski infuses the screenplay with progressive politics that somehow slipped past studio censors. Listen to the dialogue between Garfield and his mother about success. "What good does it do if you don't believe in what you're doing?" she asks, articulating the moral erosion at the heart of the American dream. James Wong Howe's revolutionary cinematography, he literally wore roller skates and held the camera to follow fighters in the ring, creates an immediacy that influenced sports photography for decades. Modern viewers may not realize how innovative his handheld work was. In 1947, cameras were primarily mounted on cumbersome dollies and cranes. The boxing sequences feel violent in a visceral, oxygen-deprived way that makes Rocky look choreographed by comparison. Writer Abraham Polanski's pro-labor messaging scared exhibitors during Red Scare tremors. Many chains refused bookings, costing United Artists a mint. Howe's kinetic chiaroscuro now looks fresher than ringside VR, freely viewable in multiple HD uploads on the archive. Spot the scene where Garfield paces beneath a single swinging bulb. Scorsese lifted the rhythm, beat for Raging Bull. One filmmaker's acknowledgement of an influence too powerful to deny. Sudden Fear, 1952. Joan Crawford plays a playwright who records every rehearsal, handy when she discovers her new husband, Jack Palance, rehearsing her murder. Shot entirely on San Francisco hills, director David Miller weaponizes vertiginous streets and real cable car clang to trap Crawford in night sweat paranoia. What elevates this beyond standard woman in peril fare is Crawford's Myra Hudson, not a helpless victim, but a shrewd tactician using her playwright's imagination to outthink her would-be killers. The sequence where she discovers the murder plot via dictaphone, then plots her counter-strategy, unfolds in near silence, Crawford's face becoming a landscape of realization, terror, and then calculated resolve. It's a masterclass in reaction acting that reminds us why Crawford remained a powerhouse decades into her career. Miller uses San Francisco's natural topography to externalize Hudson's precarious position, always either climbing desperately uphill or in danger of tumbling down into darkness. The night scenes, particularly, employ practical noir techniques to maximum effect. Headlights creating momentary spotlights before plunging characters back into shadow. Fog obscuring pursuer from pursuit until the last possible moment, and the constant background rhythm of foghorns suggesting doom approaching through the mist. Despite 4 Oscar nominations, the producing company collapsed. The nitrate negative sat shrinking until a 2019 rescue, and its public domain U.S. status now keeps a razor-sharp transfer on both YouTube and Internet Archive. Those final 12 minutes, Crawford's tape recorder echoing through pitch-black alleys, could rattle Alfred Hitchcock himself, proving that sometimes the most terrifying sound is your own voice coming back to haunt you. Pick Up on South Street, 1953. Cold War spies, waterfront grifters, and subway pickpockets collide in Samuel Fuller's 80-minute gut punch. When petty thief Skip lifts microfilm from an unsuspecting courier, the FBI, communist agents, and stool pigeon Thelma Ritter bring New York slang that stings like sleet. Fuller, a combat veteran who landed at Normandy with a camera, brings battlefield intensity to urban conflict. His subway pickpocketing sequence, where Richard Widmark's fingers dance inside a woman's purse while his eyes never meet hers, unfolds with the precision of a military operation. Fuller films it primarily in close-ups that heighten both the intimacy of the violation and the clinical detachment of the thief's technique. It's a sequence so visceral that the New York Transit Authority reportedly increased plainclothes officers after the film's release. What makes Pick Up quintessentially noir is its moral ambiguity toward American institutions. Despite the Cold War setting, Fuller refuses to glorify either the FBI or his petty criminal protagonist. When Vidmark spits, "Don't wave the flag at me," at an agent trying to appeal to his patriotism, the film places itself firmly in noir's cynical tradition, neither left nor right politically, but deeply suspicious of all authority and equally contemptuous of ideological certainty from any direction. J. Edgar Hoover blasted Fuller for glamorizing street crime, Fox slashed foreign distribution, and by the 70s, the film disappeared from TV rotations. A National Film Registry restoration surfaced in 2022, and its lapse into public availability puts a crisp edition on the archive today. Listen for Ritter's deathbed monologue. 3 minutes, pure heartbreak, about a life spent saving for a funeral nobody will attend, delivered with such unflinching acceptance that it transcends the crime plot entirely. Ace in the Hole, 1951. Billy Wilder serves media cynicism raw. Kirk Douglas smolders as Chuck Tatum, a disgraced reporter who inflates a cave-in rescue into a carnival, selling human tragedy by the column inch. Paramount retitled it The Big Carnival and buried promotion. Audiences flinched at recognizing their own rubberneck appetites. No Hollywood film of its era indicates American culture more savagely. Wilder, a European émigré who lost family in the Holocaust, brings an outsider's clarity to the uniquely American alchemy of tragedy into entertainment. The sequence where rescue efforts are deliberately slowed to prolong news coverage feels less like fiction than prophecy, a blueprint for how cable news would operate decades later. Douglas, at his most ferociously charismatic, makes Tatum's corruption seductive even as we recoil from it. What truly distinguishes this noir is its setting, the harsh New Mexico desert, where shadows aren't cast by streetlights but by relentless sun. Cinematographer Charles Lang creates daytime noir, using heat haze, dust, and blinding brightness to create discomfort where traditional noir would use darkness. The cave itself becomes a metaphorical inversion, a place of cool shadow that paradoxically represents exposure rather than concealment. Overseas copyrights lapsed first, letting Pluto TV host the film free in North America today. Watch Wilder's Dolly Inn as Tatum's eyes gleam. One take the Pierce's clickbait culture 74 years early, reminding us that media exploitation didn't begin with the internet, but with the first human impulse to profit from another's misfortune. Dial M for Murder, 1954. Hitchcock shot this drawing room thriller with dual cameras, one for 3D, one flat. Then Warner Brothers withdrew the stereoscopic prints, convinced the fad had died. Unlike Vertigo or Psycho, Dial M languished in vaults until 3D enthusiasts financed a negative scan in 2019. Though less celebrated than Hitchcock's other work, Dial M contains some of his most precise visual storytelling. Working within the confines of essentially one apartment set, Hitchcock creates a geometric puzzle box where every object becomes loaded with narrative significance, keys that won't quite turn, scissors that become weapons, and most famously, telephone cords that bind characters to their fate. Watch how he stages the attempted murder sequence, Grace Kelly reaching backward in the dark, her hand desperately searching for a weapon as the attacker's hands close around her throat. It's a masterclass in blocking that creates maximum tension from minimal movement. The color scheme deserves special attention. Unlike the black and white world of most noir, Hitchcock uses a palette dominated by emerald green and crimson, creating an atmosphere that feels simultaneously poisonous and passionate. Kelly's white nightgown during the murder attempt becomes a canvas for both colors, first bathed in green light, then stained with red blood. A visual transition from innocence to violence that requires no dialogue. The flat version sits in U.S. public domain. Several HD uploads on Internet Archive and Daily Motion let you luxuriate in Hitchcock's emerald and crimson color scheme. Note how every telephone cord winds across the carpet like a snake, foreshadowing murder even when nothing moves, a static shot more menacing than many modern horror sequences filled with digital creatures. The Asphalt Jungle, 1950. John Huston's jewel heist procedural feels less like fiction than a case file. Sterling Hayden dreams of buying back the family farm. Sam Jaffe times the theft to the second. Marilyn Monroe, in her breakthrough bit role, radiates fragile hope that crime might buy happiness. The film's documentary-like attention to the mechanics of crime set the template for countless heist movies to follow. Houston spends nearly 30 minutes on the robbery itself, showing each technical challenge and improvisational solution in meticulous detail. What makes this sequence revolutionary is its focus on process rather than result. We become invested in the craftsmanship of the crime rather than its moral implications. Watch how Harold Rawson's camera slides along the jeweler's wall as the drill bit penetrates, creating visual tension from an action as mundane as making a hole. Beyond technique, the Asphalt Jungle offers a sociological portrait of crime as an alternate economic system with its own professional codes and class hierarchies. Each character represents a different relationship to money. Hayden's Dix wants only enough to reclaim his lost heritage. Jaffe's Doc dreams of exotic escape to Mexico. Louis Calhern's lawyer pretends to be legitimate while secretly financing theft. Even the brief appearance by Monroe as Calhern's mistress suggests another kind of transaction, beauty exchanged for security in a world where conventional paths to stability seem closed. MGM deemed the ending too bleak and yanked the film from many small-town theaters, then let overseas rights lapse. Today, a clean print streams on Tubi, its near-documentary attention to process birthing every caper movie from Rififi to Ocean's 11. Watch the silent safe-cracking scene, just tick-tock anxiety, and Howe's foreboding shadows teaching modern filmmakers how suspense works better without a score telling audiences what to feel. If you've enjoyed this journey through noir's hidden treasures, remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We unearth these cinematic gems every week so you don't have to go searching in the shadows alone. Drop a comment below telling us which of these films you'll be watching first, or share your own noir discoveries that deserve more attention.